My husband's best friend Nate got a new girlfriend Camilla about half a year ago. She moved to our city recently, so she doesn't really have any friends here, but she and I hanged out a couple of times and started to get friendly. For context, we are all in our 20s. My husband and I both have nice jobs. We own a small flat, play tennis as a hobby. Camilla thinks it a rich people sport, and we regularly travel by finding €10 plane tickets and staying at cheap hostels for 3 nights at a time. Now to the point, my husband and I were hosting a little get together. Nate, Camilla and a few of our other friends were invited. At one point, the conversation went to topics like the current level of inflation, how the lockdown affected people and jobs, the housing market, etc. and I had something to say too, agreeing with Camilla. Camilla cut me off and said something like, haha, no offense, but you are way too much of a spoiled privileged girl to understand things like this. You would need a tragedy or two in your life to understand struggle. I love you, but you never experienced any hardship in your life, haha. The room went dead silent and nobody said anything. After some awkward silence, I stood up and said, well, is anybody hungry? Shall we eat? And we never went back to that topic. Camilla messaged me the next day asking me how could I do this to her. Nate told her afterwards that I had an abusive father and I fell ill as a teenager, spent months in the hospital, had to have multiple life-saving surgeries, and it took me a month to learn to walk again. Camilla is mad at me for not telling these very personal things to her before and making her look terrible to Nate's friends. She said that even correcting her at the party would have been better because then she cold apologized to me in front of everyone, but I took that chance away from her and now she will never make friends here. Honestly, this whole thing is ridiculous and I don't really think I'm an asshole, but it never hurts to ask. Maybe I should have gently corrected her after she said that. Eta? NTA. Camilla could have avoided all of that by just keeping quiet. She didn't need to weigh in an ignorant opinion like that, and it certainly wasn't going to help her make friends, even if it was true. What she said was rude and uncalled for. This is on her. Better to be silent and be thoughtful than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. Some guy on the internet, probably. NTA. She insulted you by saying you're spoiled despite not knowing your background and undermined your life experiences. She wanted to talk shit so she can get S*** back at her as a consequence. Op handled it with class and grace, and the rude guest *was corrected when her statement hung awkwardly in the air like that. The guest is just too tacky and immature to realize she's at fault here, and her poor little psyche is deflecting the blame outward. NTA, she's fucking rude. I loathe no offense but people. It means I'm going to insult you to your face, but you are pre-warned, so you are not allowed to complain about it. As it is, you were the perfect hostess and defuse the situation she created. She then had the nerve to tell you off about it the next day. Tell her to F*** off and find her own friends. I think it's hilarious when people think that sticking no offense but in front of an incredibly offensive statement will give them a free pass. Spoiler, it doesn't, and you still look like an ignorant / bigoted as shat. NTA. She probably would have been embarrassed had you corrected her in front of everyone, and she would have been mad and called you an R. It's a no-win situation. That comment makes her emo. Yup. Camilla just wants this to be someone else's fault. NTA. No one is entitled to personal facts about your life and no one is entitled redemption for their mistakes. Life is not zero-sum, but impressions are everything. NTA. Camilla wants a performative friendship. She was trying to meet new people and committed a major faux pas by trying to make herself seem worldly by calling you out in your own home, and it backfired on her spectacularly. Be cordial, be polite, but move on. I 100% agree with you. I just want to add that it's very impressive how Op shut Camilla down and just dropped the subject. Op showed they're the bigger person. This reminds me of my own Camilla. Moved to my city a few years after university. I never actually knew her all that well. She was more a friend of a friend of a friend, but she reached out cause she had no friends and I started including her in stuff. One of my friends jokingly brought up how I'm not the most punctual person, and she went ham straight in, hardcore jokes about how I'm so late I barely show up anywhere. I remember thinking, hang on, I don't know you like that, and I've been on time every time we've met. And actually this feels unkind coming from you. She did a couple of times, putting me down, in order to feel included with everyone else. So I stopped inviting her out to places. And I suggest that you do too. At the very least don't host her in your home again. Because even without the backstory, this whole time she's been judging you and then had the audacity to interrupt you and insult you after you've gone out of your way to make her feel welcome and included. So why bother to keep the door of your home open to her? NTA. NTA. Oh my. Poor Camilla. Well, not that I have sympathy, but she started to cuss you out because she had assumptions and it backfired right into her face. You correcting her on the spot would be fruitless. From her attitude she would have just demanded that such information should have been given her much earlier. You correcting her on the spot would be fruitless. Even if Op didn't have anything tragic in her past, someone who barely knows her calling her a spoiled, privileged girl is extremely rude. So, you attack me at my party and now you text me and blame me for what happened? NTA, your trauma and personal pain is not owed to her or to anyone else. You still shouldn't have to say anything about to her that you do not wish to. Maybe tell her to stop being so entitled and to stop casually brushing people's stories and opinions off for any laughing matter. She's an asshole, but you definitely are not. Edit. Forgot the words you at the end, sorry. NTA, she decided to be horrible to you in front of everyone because she's clearly jealous of you. You did exactly the right thing in response. I would keep my distance from this woman from now on. And block her. NTA. She jumped to conclusions and doesn't have the guts to admit it. She took it too far and now, for some ridiculous reason only known to her, she's hoping you'll bail her out. I think you handled it with so much grace and class that you deserve a standing ovation. Wow. Even if someone is spoiled and privileged, wishing tragedy is just a big no. WTF. NTA, and she should learn how to treat people. Yeah, even if Op was privileged and has never experienced anything tough, how classless is it to say something like this? NTA. Camilla sounds narcissistic and is more upset that she looked bad. You need to extract her from your life. She sounds horrible and definitely not your friend. NTA, Camilla sounds awful. You are not obligated to disclose personal information, and you didn't make her judge you unfairly. Isn't it wonderful when people who we think are friends take our past tragedies and make it about themselves? Camilla is not your friend. She doesn't deserve friends either, seeing as she sucks as a person. You are NTA. NTA. Those are very personal things. Also, she made her storyline up and ran with it, so consequences of her own bias. NTA, so she called and complained that she couldn't apologize in front of everyone instead of apologizing when she called. Yeah, no, NTA, performative AF. Lol. Camilla hears about all the that's happened to you and immediately thinks, how could you do this to me? That's egregiously self-centered tbh. You are not the hater. You have done nothing wrong, but in fact done everything right. Your life now proves that. Her guilt is on her. If she doesn't make friends, it's her fault. She spoke out of turn. It would not have been okay to said those words, even if they had been true. Friends don't belittle other friends. She's trying to push her guilt onto you. Don't let her. Tell her next time maybe she should think before speaking. She doesn't feel guilty. She feels embarrassed. She made herself look horrible in front of other people. NTA. Be sure to tell Nate what Camilla messaged you. Her message didn't even have an apology. Just straight up blaming you for her own big mouth. She thinks she only needs to apologize for being wrong, not for being an asshole. Like, in her mind, using someone's relative privilege to shut their perspective down in a conversation is a totally acceptable thing to do. Asterisk but only if they are actually privileged asterisk. She's misunderstanding that this is a shitty thing to do in a conversation, period. NTA. Using someone's relative privilege to shut their perspective down in a conversation is a totally acceptable thing to do. No, not really. Why would you be a jerk to someone in a casual conversation? Op was agreeing with her, and she's not even allowed to do that. That's just nonsense. Why are you even friends with them? If you hate them so much you get angry if they are upset that the economy is bad. NTA. She was completely out of line. Even if you didn't have any hardships while growing up, she still had zero rights to basically tell you to shut up just because. You did great, in my opinion. You just refused to participate in Suffering's Olympics. Making her look terrible to Nate's friends. Maybe if she hadn't said something rude and terrible in front of Nate's friends she wouldn't be in this mess. NTA. The funny thing about her phrasing is that they are Op's friends too. Even in her apology, Camilla centers herself and can't imagine Op as a full character in her own right. NTA. Camilla is attempting to win superficial friendships by going with what she perceives to be popular opinion, even if it means tearing someone else down as some kind of sacrificial lamb. Her plan backfired on her perfectly. Just let the karma take its own direction. It'll probably follow her into new circles as well. NTA. Camilla is ridiculous. Her ridiculousness created this. NTA. You are the bigger person. Not engaging is the best way to handle this kind of thing. And beyond that, she clearly doesn't care about actually being decent, only appearing that way. Hopefully she learns to think more critically before casting judgments. She opened this can of worms. She can line it. NTA. She failed and it's now your fault. This girl is narcissistic. That's not my fault. And if it was, I didn't mean it. And if I did, you deserved it. So you were *WERE agreeing with HER* on whatever point she was making, and she decided to insult you in your own home. In response, you were polite and tactful and somehow now *YOU the asshole? No way. You don't owe her your life story in order to not be insulted in your own home. Besides which, she sounds like the kid of person who, if you had corrected her in the moment, would have responded defensively or dug her heels in. I don't think there was a winning move with her, and you handled it as well as anyone could have in the moment. She's reacting to her own hurt pride by lashing out instead of reflecting on her own actions and assumptions, and that makes her tar. NTA. NTA. Honestly, this reminds me of a work colleague I used to have that just decided I had never gone through anything emotionally traumatic because I was unwilling to share details of my experiences with abuse at work. As far as I was concerned, I was there to work, not unload all my previous trials and tribulations onto people who didn't necessarily want to deal with a psychological battering like that. In the same way, both my work colleague and your friend's GF are nasty pieces of work. I really hate the attitude that you have to be completely willing to unload every horrific piece of your past in order to be considered worthy of sympathy or to hold an opinion or viewpoint on political matters. Lots of people can be great allies and don't necessarily have to go through difficult times in order to be kind and sympathetic. The fact that she's got pissy about Nate revealing these things just shows she doesn't actually care about you. She just wants to look good. A decent person would contact you privately and apologize immediately. Honestly, I'm impressed you dealt with it so calmly and gracefully. I would've told someone like that to get the F*** out of my house.